All right, let's get this kicked off.
This is Lindsay Amare. Lindsay is the host of the channel Queer Kid Stuff here on YouTube, and it's a channel dedicated to creating LGBTQ+ informative content for children. This is Lindsay's intro sequence, and given that it is 33 seconds of a 7-minute and 47-second TED Talk, I think we're going to skip it in lieu of my own intro sequence that is far superior. Let the demonetization process begin! I normally don't take massive issue with educational content, ladies and gentlemen, especially if it will help bridge the divide between groups of people. In this case, the straight and the LGBT community, I guess. I mean, what's wrong with discussing the sexual aspects of interpersonal relationships and, Lindsay's target demographic being so goddamn young and impressionable, and also the LGBT plus community as a whole being so inherently toxic, bitter, and hate-filled, what's wrong with that? Who am I kidding? This channel was created to be the bane of my existence, of course. Look at the bottom corner right here. Under the column of Queer Kid Friends, we have Lindsay's alt channel, Poppin' Ollie, My Kid is Gay, and Desmond is Amazing. Yes, we all know how Weebo feels about propagating drag kids onto the ethernet, don't we? It's not like I've produced a number of videos on the subject itself. Honestly, there's no reason to teach a 5-year-old about all of the sexualities and genders and about transitioning as a trans person. They are 5. They don't care about sex. They care about their imaginary friends and making mud pies that you then have to tell them not to eat. They shouldn't be transitioning or having sex or going to pride events. They should be kids. Of course, I also think that children should be wholly barred from the internet until they reach their majority, so I might be a tad biased on the issue, but I sincerely think that I'm not the only one who thinks that kids should not be exposed to this kind of nonsense. And so imagine my intrigue, given my perspective on this matter, to find that the TED Talk, quote, Why Kids Need to Learn About Gender and Sexuality, Lindsay Amare, existed. And so here we find ourselves, basking in the glory of this TED Talk and producing a video that's probably only going to average about 500 views, give or take. We'll see.
Opening a performance with lyrics like "It's okay to be gay" for a room full of adults is one thing, but it's entirely different for a room full of kindergartners.
Just in case you thought I was joking about Lindsay's intended demographic being 5-year-olds, I was in fact not. There it is, straight from the horse's mouth, as it were.
What you just heard is the theme song for my web series, Queer Kid Stuff, where I make LGBTQ+ and social justice videos for all ages, and when I say all ages, I mean literal babies to your great-great-grandma.
And I have several things to say about this, but I will boil it down to 2, just so that we're not here until the world ends in a fiery ball. So, we have literal babies, the babbling demographic who we play Mozart for in hopes that they will get in 36 on the ACT and become a world-renowned surgeon later on in life due to that, who have yet to fully develop their skulls. Yet that's who we're teaching LGBT plus education to, not just 5-year-olds. And then, somehow, even more ridiculously, we have great-great-grandmothers on the other end of this spectrum. Imagine gearing your entire set and web series towards kids, it's even in the name of the channel, mind you, and then claiming it's for all ages, even that of great-great-grandmother Irene, whose vagina actually prolapsed back in the 1970s, resulting in the most traumatizing of Christmas mornings ever. Nice try, Lindsay. I'm onto you. Unlike your actual target demographic, my brain is damn near close to being completely developed.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Whoa, they're talking about gay stuff with kids. But talking to kids about gay stuff is actually crucial.
Yes, of course. How else will Jimothy know exactly the position to fall into when Father Albert down at St. Agnes's decides that it is his time?
The American Academy of Pediatrics has found that children have a solid understanding of their gender identity by the age of 4.
Which is why you need to confuse them when they are infants, so that their gender identities never actually get a chance to solidify in their heads, thus the gender binary is dismantled and the queer gender actualized. Ha 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 ha. I'm being deliberately obstinate here for the sake of funnies, ladies and gentlemen. I implore that you do not get your gender non-conforming panties into a twist, please, and thank you.
This is when children are developing their sense of self. They're observing the world around them, absorbing that information, and internalizing it. Now, most parents want their children to become kind, empathetic, self-confident adults, and exposure to diversity is an important part of that social and emotional development.
In that, we agree. But diversity of sexuality is not part of that important social and emotional development, Lindsay. At least not yet. You can pretend to be as kid-friendly as you possibly want to in your web series. You are not overt, but you are that gateway to the more graphic side of YouTube LGBT plus content, which can get pretty bad.
And gender nonconforming kids and trans kids and kids with trans and non-binary and queer parents are everywhere. In the series, my stuffed bear co-host and I talk about the LGBT community.
Oh. You mean the same community that celebrates dildo-studded bodysuits and submissive leather furries on leashes among a selection of all of the naked body types you could ever have imagined in your nightmares. And what about that time when drag queen storytime in a Houston library exposed kids to an actual convicted child predator in their efforts to celebrate diversity? A 200-pound, 5'11" man convicted of assaulting an 8-year-old and at a moderate risk of reoffending was overlooked in the name of sexual diversity expression, Lindsay. And yeah, you guys might not be on the same level, but they do run parallel, don't they? These two instances of your channel and library time with trans drag people. Your goal is to get kids used to the idea of diversity and sexuality and gender expression, is it not? Let me repeat. Your goal is to expose children to sexual diversity at an early age. Does that not strike you as a little bit just eek? No? With the risk of children being accidentally exposed to online sexuality through your content because of the way the algorithm works, much less actually discussing this stuff amongst other politically charged topics like feminism, racism, election results, it's not all that innocent and singularly about diversity and inclusion, is it, Lindsay? Is it? There's an element of indoctrination here, and it's kind of plain to see for all.
Activism, gender and pronouns, consent, and body positivity.
What is a 5-year-old going to do regarding activism? I am suddenly reminded of those tiny kids from the Westboro Baptist Church who held up signs protesting soldier funerals that said, God hates fags. Just deja vu all over again. And it's not because it's in any way hateful in the same way, or by any means similarly damaging, but rather because you are having a child propagate a political message that they have no hope of understanding, nor genuinely caring about, and saying, go nuts, little Timothy. Make yourself look like the part of a self-righteous fool before you can even ride a bike sans training wheels.
We tackle these topics through songs, not unlike the one you just heard, simple definitions, and metaphors. We approach these ideas, to steal a phrase from an old professor of mine, from under the doorknob. Getting down to toddler height and looking up at the great big world through their tiny little eyes. Taking these seemingly complex ideas and simplifying them. Not dumbing them down, but homing in on the core concept.
And again, I'm asking why the kids need to know about this early. Genuinely. Why do they need to know the difference between gay, lesbian, asexual, bisexual, whatever, when all you have to say at that age to a kid is everyone loves differently? And they get the concept like love can be diverse without exposing them to the sexuality aspect of love.
Gender is about how we feel and how we express ourselves.
You see, when that is defined like that, I have to pause, because really the only thing that you're saying is that everyone expresses their personality differently and it doesn't have to do with gender, simply just expression. But no, we have to attribute differences in personality to a multiple of different gender labels because everyone is special and unique, or what?
Sexuality is about love and gender and family, not about sex.
But it is. It literally is. It's about what you're inherently attracted to. No matter how you dice it, it's about sex. And that's where people are hung up, because a big component of sexuality is which genitals, primary and secondary sex characteristics, but most definitely which primary sex characteristics it is that you find appealing to you. And guess what, Lindsay? Genitals and children do not mix. Full stop.
And these are all ideas children can grasp. In one of my earliest episodes about gender, I used the idea of pronouns to underscore the definition and introduce gender-neutral pronouns like they and them. I encourage children to think about their own pronouns and to ask others for theirs. In later episodes, I build on this foundation and introduce big, fancy words like non-binary and transgender. I get emails from viewers in their 20s who use my videos to explain non-binary gender to their grandparents.
Because what better time to indoctrinate a people than when their brain is riddled with dementia and they can no longer easily escape you. Right, Lindsay?
But I get one comment over and over again. Let kids be kids.
Yes, absolutely. Leave them alone, Lindsay. Do not muddle their brains with how-to activism videos in 2019, 2016 election videos, and lawsuits. If your channel was really about educating kids in this manner solely, then why are these videos plastered up there for any 5-year-old subscribed to your channel to actually stumble across? Honestly.
Well, that's a nice sentiment and all, but only if it actually includes all kids. Just a few weeks ago, a 15-year-old in Huntsville, Alabama, died by suicide after being bullied for being gay.
And that was a tragedy. But they were 15, not 5. There's a dramatic difference.
In 2018, it was a 7-year-old in Denver, Colorado.
In actuality, the kid Lindsay is referring to was 9 years of age. Still tragic, but it's still significantly a different age gap between a 5-year-old demographic that her content is being geared towards and the 9-year-old that she uses as an example here.
There have been and will be many more. Lesbian, gay, and bisexual teens are more than 3 times more likely to attempt suicide than their heterosexual peers, and transgender teens are almost 6 times more likely. According to one study, roughly 1/3 of homeless youth identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or questioning, and about 4% of homeless youth identify as transgender, compared with 1% of the general youth population surveyed.
But these are not just 5-year-olds we're talking about. They're not. 5-year-olds do not care about their sexuality or their gender expression as it pertains to partnering up with people until you make that a big deal for them. Until you point it out to them that this is a line of thought that they should pursue, they don't care. They are sponges, and until that subject is broached, it's a non-issue. Kids aren't even aware that boys and girls have different genitalia until roughly about the age of 4. Did you know that? And you said you wanted to open up those floodgates at the ripe old age of infancy. Infancy. Remember, she said it. Yes. Let kids be kids. Let them broach the subject because they are naturally curious about it. Not go out of your way to broach it for them. Please. And yes, that asks parents to be open and honest and to have prepared themselves prior for those questions. And that might be where you might be more useful, Lindsay.
According to the Human Rights Campaign, there have been 128 killings of trans people in 87 cities across 32 states since 2013, and those are only the reported cases.
And this is pertinent to teaching 5-year-olds about sexuality. How? Is it the 5-year-olds that are going out and killing trans people across 32 states? Do I have to worry about a fun-sized Jeffrey Dahmer in the event that I decided that morning that I identified as a gender non-conforming transgender lesbian? Is that it? It's ridiculous because that seems like an issue spurred on by a demographic whose pointer finger can actually reach the itchy lever on the bang bang stick.
And 80% of those killings were of trans women of color.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a 5-year-old KKK Grand Wizard decked out in oversized purple robes who has the itchy trigger finger. My bad. Why didn't you lead with that, Lindsay? It changes absolutely nothing.
The queer situation is bleak, to say the least. The YouTube comments on my videos are not much better. I'm used to the harassment, I get messages daily telling me I'm a pedophile and that I should kill myself in a number of increasingly creative ways.
A message to my audience. We're going to directly address you guys there at this moment. Even though I know y'all have more self-control than a keyboard warrior sped holed up in his mom's basement, don't be that guy. I expect better from you. Alright? Thank you.
I once had to put the word truck on my block list because someone wanted me to get run over by a truck. Shower and oven are in there too for the less creative and more disturbing Holocaust reference.
So, okay, at the time of this recording, November 2019, most of your videos have the comments disabled, so I guess problem solved? Skip?
When neo-Nazis marched in Charlottesville, I was unsurprised to learn that the creator of a violent Reddit meme about one of my episodes was in the Tiki Torch crowd.
How did we get here from talking about why kids need to learn about gender and sexuality? None of the pieces fit together, Lindsay. You are rambling.
This barrage of negativity is what we're up against. The crushing statistics, the violence, the mental health risks, the well-meaning but flawed response my parents gave me when I came out that they didn't want me to have a harder life.
So let's just take all of that and throw it onto the backs of a whole bunch of 5-year-olds, why don't we? We do need to educate the masses of children, after all.
That's what we're up against. But in the face of all that, I choose joy. I choose rainbows and unicorns and glitter, and I sing that it's okay to be gay with my childhood stuffed teddy bear. I make queer media for kids because I wish I had this when I was their age. I make it so others don't have to struggle through what I did, not understanding my identity because I didn't have any exposure to who I could be.
And who is that, Lindsay? Aside from the who you're sleeping with, I don't see how you couldn't find a musically inclined bow-tied kid TV show host that taught things about stuff using anthropomorphic, fuzzy puppet sidekicks in your childhood. Because I could.
I teach and spread this message through joy and positivity instead of framing it around the hardships of queer life. I want kids to grow up and into themselves with pride for who they are and who they can be, no matter who they love or what they wear or what pronouns they use, and I want them to love others for their differences, not in spite of them.
And we can do that without exposing them to child drag, Lindsay.
I think fostering this pride and empathy will make the world a kinder and more equal place and combat the bigotry and hate that festers in our world.
It's all a nice sentiment, but I disagree with your premise. Teaching kids about gender and sexuality when they're 5 doesn't help them grow into who it is that they will become. Rather, it muddles the waters. It confuses them emphatically and exposes them to something that they were certainly not ready for. These are not conversations I want Lindsay to be having with kids on the internet, and it boils down to that. They are conversations that parents should be having with their kids, if the subject is broached naturally by the child at that age. Otherwise, you leave it. Full stop.
So, talk to a kid about gender. Talk to a kid about sexuality, teach them about consent, tell them it is okay for boys to wear dresses and for girls to speak up. Let's spread radical queer joy.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Before we go, I have a piece of mail from one of you lovely viewers here. You can find the P.O. box to this channel displayed down in the description below. And it's from Dan. Say hi, Dan. And Dan is a sweetheart. I don't think this is the first letter I got from Dan before, but yeah, it is decorated in the Halloween style on the front. I would show you, but I don't want to accidentally dox Dan. Ooh, we have this lovely think it's a painting. Painting on the front of a skull, and we have this lovely painting of a Frankenstein monster on the back or the front. I can't really tell, actually. Either way, I really love the design. The artwork is magnificent. I really like the detailed shading, and ooh. Are these a watercolor? I think they're in watercolor. They look magnificent. Thank you so much, Dan. Happy Weeboing. And then message from Dan. Thank you, Dan. I do appreciate this. I love it when people send me mail, especially when they send me things that they've created. It makes me feel loved. Makes me feel good. All right. So if you would like to send me anything in the P.O. box, that's in the description. Remember, we have Wednesday night game nights in the Discord, which is also linked in the description. And then on Sundays from 8 to 9:30, maybe 10, maybe 10:30, we'll see. We have cocktail hour here on my channel with Polydub, so be there or be square. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you in the next one. Peace. Ah!